I'm on a mission to reach my first 1,000 subscribers, and I need your support. If you love movies, reviews, and great stories, hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey. Thank you.
In South Korea, a superhuman appeared. With a single kick, he sent Choi, one of the top assassins, flying. But what he didn't know was that Choi's body had also been enhanced. It just hadn't been activated yet. "I'll kill you," Choi roared, his pent-up potential finally erupting. The overwhelming power took even the superhuman by surprise, and he was ultimately defeated. However, these experimental subjects all had one fatal weakness. They were highly sensitive to strong light. Prolonged exposure would make them explode. But Choi, he had somehow overcome this limitation. Not only was he immune, but he could also counterattack and keep fighting. Choi's abilities weren't just a stroke of luck. As a top assassin, he had developed a split personality. Not long ago, he discovered his father's body near a parking lot. Though there was a hint of sorrow in his eyes, the truth was, he wasn't deeply affected. His father's funeral proceeded as planned. Shortly after, a restaurant owner arrived at the service. He was an old friend of Choi's father and invited Choi to his restaurant for a meal. But why would a simple restaurant owner need so many bodyguards? Of course, Choi wasn't just anyone. Surrounded by men staring at him intensely while he ate, he remained completely unfazed. On the contrary, the restaurant owner, Mo, felt uneasy. He wanted to say something, but a sharp glance from Choi silenced him instantly. In an effort to curry favor, Mo quickly brought out some pickled radish. Once the meal was over, he suddenly placed 2 large bags of cash on the table, saying, "This is just the deposit. You'll get much more once the job is done." "Thanks, but no thanks," Choi replied. "Hold on a second. Why does it have to be you?" Mo questioned. This habit of talking to himself was nothing new to those who knew Choi, because one of his personalities was his own twin brother. Sensing an opportunity, Mo tried persuading Choi. He explained that the object in question was a high-security lockbox, crafted by a master locksmith. In South Korea, only Choi's late father and Choi himself had the ability to open it. Completing this job would not only be lucrative, but it would also be the perfect mission before retirement. Perhaps convinced by Mo's words, Choi soon positioned himself along a key road where the target was expected to pass. Single-handedly, he took down all the bodyguards and successfully obtained the lockbox. Just then, Mo and his men arrived, impressed by Choi's skills. But in the next moment, Mo pulled out a gun and fired 2 shots at Choi, just to be safe. He then ordered his men to throw Choi's body into the river. After dealing with Choi, Mo rushed back to his restaurant, waiting for his employer's arrival. Once the man appeared, he handed over the lockbox. However, things were not as simple as they seemed. The man was an agent from the 2nd Division of the National Intelligence Service, and the targets that Choi had eliminated were actually agents from the 1st Division. This entire mission had been nothing more than an internal power struggle within the NIS. And Mo? He was nothing but a disposable pawn. As he stood waiting for further orders, he suddenly acted. He casually patted the shoulders of the 2 undercover agents beside him, signaling his men to open fire. They immediately gunned down the agents before they could react. Meanwhile, somewhere near a dam, a wounded woman emerged from the water. Choi. Despite her injuries, she was more concerned about the white funeral flower still perched on her head. She quickly adjusted it before pulling out a small cloth-wrapped vial from her chest. Inside was a mysterious black liquid, the infamous Tyrant, the true objective of this mission. She had managed to open the lockbox and retrieve it before Mo arrived. However, she had no idea what the substance did. For now, she simply stashed it away. The bigger problem? The nearest city was miles away, and she had no way to get back. That was when she spotted a taxi. Inside, a terrified young woman sat in the back seat, clearly being held captive by 2 men. From the look on her face, it wasn't hard to tell what was about to happen. The driver casually stepped out, telling the man in the back to handle the girl while he went to take a piss. Without a word, Choi bent down, picked up a small branch, and snapped it in half. The thug inside the car was just about to make his move when, bang! The driver's head was suddenly smashed against the window. Panicked, the thug jumped out of the car to check. Choi took the opportunity to climb into the driver's seat and slam her foot on the gas. The girl in the back, trembling, sat up just in time to see Choi spin the car around and floor it straight at the thug. He was sent flying, but one hit wasn't enough. Choi then gunned it toward the driver, ensuring he was completely taken out. Her brutal efficiency left the girl in the back seat horrified. Without hesitation, she bolted from the car and ran for her life. Choi didn't care. Whether the girl survived or not was none of her business. The 2 scumbags were dead. That was enough. Later, she arrived at a private clinic, seeking treatment for her wounds. The doctor was a sleazy man with no real credentials. His eyes gleamed when he saw the wad of cash Choi had brought. Even worse, he spotted the small cloth bundle she carried. When he realized it contained Tyrant, his expression changed. This was NIS property. Immediately, he picked up the phone and made a call. Not long after, there was a knock at the door. The doctor grinned, convinced he was about to hit the jackpot. But the moment he opened the door, armed men stormed inside. only to find the operating table empty. Before they could react, Choi struck from behind. Even injured, these low-level thugs were no match for her. Within minutes, they were all dead. After taking care of them, she cleaned herself up and picked out a fresh set of clothes. But just as she reached for a practical outfit, her brother's personality took control, making her choose a sharp, stylish look instead. Annoyed but unable to argue with herself, she gave in. It was time for revenge. She got into a car and hit the road. Meanwhile, her arch-nemesis, the elite assassin Hong, was also on the move. "Maybe I used too much hair gel today," he muttered. His latest target? A family living deep in the mountains. The story went that an old man had encountered a three-armed monster while chopping wood. Just as the creature was about to kill him, the rising sun touched its body, causing it to burst into flames and explode. But at the last moment, a single drop of black liquid had splashed into the old man's eye. Now, bedridden and raving about monsters, his wife was desperate. The neighbors had all fled in fear, and the local doctors dismissed him as insane. Hong, however, had a different perspective. Taking out his phone, he played a video of the creature. The old man immediately recoiled in terror, confirming that he was indeed the target. With a smirk, Hong calmly put on a protective mask and aimed his pistol, first at the wife, then at the old man. As the black liquid tried to escape, he fired again, forcing it back. Then, to ensure there were no loose ends, he doused the house in gasoline and set it ablaze. No witnesses, no evidence. Just another mission completed. Mission complete. Hong was ready to head home and rest. But just as he got into his car, a new mission popped up. His targets were Gian Mo and Choi. At the same time, Choi arrived at the restaurant. Before stepping out of the car, she reached for a safety pin, intending to pick the lock. But the door was already open. Inside, the place was completely deserted. As she scanned the room, her eyes landed on a group photo hanging on the wall. Instantly, a plan formed in her mind. Elsewhere, the head of the National Intelligence Service's 2nd Division arrived at a towering skyscraper to meet an important contact. The moment he reached the top floor, he was met with resistance from bodyguards. Yet he didn't complain. He knew his counterpart's status far exceeded his own. "Seun, how interesting," the man remarked. "Every time I come here, the view has changed." This man was Pao, an American, and the true power behind the 2nd Division. The loss of the Tyrant Serum had enraged him, prompting him to fly to South Korea personally. Beyond reclaiming the serum, he also intended to wipe out the 1st Division and the director of the NIS. He glared at the division head, spitting venomous words. "You're incompetent. You had the prize in your hands, and you still let it slip away." The division head dared not refute him. Meanwhile, Choi spotted a car in the parking lot. She casually placed a newspaper on the rear window and waited. As soon as the owner stepped out, she slipped behind him, forced him down, and stole the car. Her next destination, Gian Mo's friend's house. Before heading inside, she stopped by a vending machine, buying 3 cans of soda. She drank one herself and stuffed the other 2 into her coat. Then she walked straight to the door and knocked. A groggy, irritated man opened it. "Who the hell? Hey, Jian, is he here?" Choi asked. The man scowled. "Never heard of him. Get lost, you Russian bitch," Choi asked again, her tone sharper. This time the man hesitated before nodding. He knew better than to lie to her. But Choi wasn't done. She beat him within an inch of his life before stepping over his barely breathing body and heading deeper inside. Inside, a group of foreigners and Han Song were gathered. Only Han Song recognized Choi. "You or me? Who's faster?" Choi asked, her eyes locked onto him. Han Song knew exactly how dangerous she was. Without hesitation, he grabbed the best weapon in the room and handed it to her. But one of the foreigners, oblivious to the gravity of the situation, made the fatal mistake of getting handsy with Choi. A flash of steel, a gunshot. Within seconds, the entire underground arsenal was wiped out. Only Han Song remained, barely clinging to life. Choi loomed over him. "Where's Jaeon Mo?" Barely able to speak, Han Song wheezed. He might be in Busan." That was all she needed to hear, but she wasn't one to leave loose ends. With one final shot, she ended him. Meanwhile, Hong had already arrived in Busan and tracked down Jaeon Mo's hideout. He confirmed there were people inside, pulled out his silenced pistol, and methodically executed everyone. He left one person alive for interrogation, but when it became clear the man knew nothing, Hong put a bullet in his head. Just then, Choi arrived. She brushed past Hong just as he was about to leave. Both stopped in their tracks. Hong's instincts told him she was his next target. Choi caught the scent of gunpowder on him. Hong's hand slipped into his pocket as he slowly stepped toward her. Sensing trouble, Choi played dumb. "I don't believe in superstition," she said casually, pretending to mistake him for a priest. For now, she had no interest in unnecessary conflict. Hong hesitated, then walked away. But as he reached the stairwell, he checked his phone. Choi was his target. He turned back immediately and waited outside. Inside, Choi took in the scene. Corpses everywhere. She wasn't surprised. If anything, she was relieved. Jaeon Mo wasn't here. She wanted to kill him herself. She turned to leave. But the moment she stepped outside, Hong fired. only for a gang of thugs to suddenly rush him. He had no choice but to let Choi escape. Dragged to a parking lot, Hong seized his chance. Minutes later, the thugs lay sprawled across the pavement, lifeless. Damn, I'm really getting old, he muttered. Elsewhere, Choi had tracked down the third man in the photo. The moment they met, she pulled out a selection of weapons and let him choose. Is this really necessary? Pulling a gun before we even talk? They were old acquaintances. The scar on the man's hand? Choi had given it to him 10 years ago. I'll tell you everything I know, he promised, but I don't know where Gyeon Mo is. The only thing I can tell you is that he's backed by the NIS. If I betray him, I'm dead. Before he could say more, Choi silenced him. Quiet. She turned. The old man was dead. Hong had killed him. Choi walked out slowly, only to find Hong standing there, gun aimed at her head. What do you know? He asked. She didn't answer. Hong smirked. Then I'll just have to kill you. Choi looked at Hong and said she would take him with her. Just as Hong realized something, he glanced down and was immediately startled. The spot Choi had targeted was brutal. If he was lucky, he'd die instantly. If not, he'd be a eunuch for life. As they exchanged sharp words, both ready to strike, Choi seized the moment and shot Hong in the leg. Hong quickly rolled to the side, grabbing a handgun and firing back, wounding Choi's arm. Both scrambled for cover, tending to their wounds. Choi then asked if he had already killed Gyeon Mo. Only after hearing Hong's denial did she breathe a sigh of relief. She needed to kill Gyeon Mo herself. Just as they were about to settle things once and for all, Hong received an urgent message. Reading it, he groaned and declared that their fight had to be postponed. There was something bigger at hand, and he had to take Choi with him. Only then did she realize Gyeon Mo had resurfaced and was hiding inside the National Intelligence Bureau. Hong tossed her the car keys. His injured leg meant he couldn't drive. Meanwhile, Gyeon Mo faced his own obstacles. He hadn't gotten far before Pao's men surrounded him. Without a word, they opened fire. Then the so-called superhuman approached, ripping the car's roof off with his bare hands. Even the doors were torn from their hinges. Gyeon Mo had no chance. He was in their hands now. The deputy chief of Section 2 could only seethe, unable to protest for fear of losing his own life on the spot. Pao sneered, telling him to sit tight while he personally delivered the Intelligence Bureau chief's head. Meanwhile, the chief himself was tied up inside Pao's car. If not for the classified information he possessed, Pao would have already executed him. Gyeon Mo mocked the chief, calling him a backstabber. After all, Gyeon Mo had handled countless dirty jobs for him, and now the chief had hired Hong to take him out. Tracking Gyeon Mo's location, Hong and Choi arrived just in time. The last car in the convoy attempted to block Hong, but its driver had underestimated him. When that failed, another car stopped to intercept him. This time, the superhuman himself stood in his path. His skin gleamed with metallic symbols, bullets merely bouncing off. He charged at a vehicle, slamming his shoulder into it and sending it flying into the grass. But as he approached, he suddenly realized there was no one inside. He scanned the surroundings only to be shot square in the forehead by Choi. However, being a superhuman, he simply stood up and sent Choi flying several meters with a single kick. As he moved in for the kill, Hong arrived just in time. One shot shattered the creature's leg, another tore through his skull. But Hong knew all too well how resilient these monsters were, so he fired another round into its head just to be sure. Turning to Choi, Hong was about to help her up when something shocking happened. Berserker took over her body. Hong was stunned. He never expected the Berserker to have been inside her all along. The containment unit had broken. Instinctively, he raised his gun, but Choi knocked it aside, assuring him that she was in control. Right now, the priority was dealing with Gyeon Mo. Meanwhile, Pao and his men arrived at an abandoned theater. This was the secret base of Chief Choi. Furious over the loss of his superhuman soldier, Pao lashed out, demanding to know where the Berserker was. The Intelligence Bureau chief refused to speak. Enraged but unable to kill him just yet, Pao vented his anger by slaughtering his subordinates in front of him. But the chief remained unfazed. Guided by another superhuman, Pao's men found the encrypted containment box. This must be it, they muttered. But the reaction of those inside was strange. Suspicious, Pao rushed forward to inspect the box himself, only to discover it was empty. The box had been in the process of being decrypted for days, and just moments ago, the code had finally been cracked. Everyone stood frozen in shock. The Intelligence Bureau chief insisted he had no idea where the Berserker was. Pao didn't believe him and ordered an execution. One by one, the chief's subordinates were gunned down. When it was Gyeon Mo's turn, he suddenly spoke up, claiming he knew where the Berserker was. He had finally realized only Choi could have unlocked that containment box. That meant she must have had the Berserker all along. At that moment, Choi and Hong stormed in. They quickly split up. "I'll handle these small fries," Hong said, as Choi squared off against the superhuman. In the blink of an eye, she was sent flying. But then something changed. Berserker's power flared across her face. Now Pao's men realized Choi wasn't just an assassin, she was a superhuman herself. The battle escalated, with both warriors unleashing devastating blows. The superhuman slammed Choi against a wall, but she used the impact to push off and ram him back. He wasn't about to be outdone. He grabbed her and hurled her to the upper floor. Meanwhile, Hong executed each of Pow's men with pinpoint shots. Then he aimed his gun at Pow's head, but Pow remained unfazed. After all, he was an American. There was no way the Intelligence Bureau chief would dare kill him. But the chief merely smiled, patted Pow's shoulder, and said nothing. Zeon Mo was the one trying to escape. At that moment, Chief Choi turned to Hong and asked why he only shot Zeon Mo in the leg. Hong replied that he had promised someone else that Zeon Mo's life would be taken by them. Right then, Choi burst through the wall. Chief Choi immediately realized that the tyrant was inside Troy. Without hesitation, the two clashed in an intense battle. For a moment, they were evenly matched. The foreigner pulled out a large knife, while Troy grabbed a steel rod. As they fought, the knife pierced Troy's body, but at the same time, the steel rod stabbed straight through the foreigner's neck. Yet he still managed to kick Troy away and slash her shoulder. This time, however, he noticed that his knife couldn't cut any deeper. Troy's superhuman abilities had reached their peak. She unleashed her full power, sending the foreigner crashing into the wall. Without hesitation, she picked up the knife and drove it through his skull, pinning him against a pillar. Then she grabbed a pistol and shot Zeon Mo dead. Out of nowhere, Hong fired a bullet into Troy's head. Now it was time for them to settle their own grudge. Troy, unfazed, said she had completely adapted. Suddenly, Chief Choi gave an order to his subordinates. "Turn on the lights!" The tyrant, now fully exposed to the harsh light, roared in pain. Hong seized the moment, firing multiple shots. Troy staggered backward under the relentless assault. But then, the tyrant completely awakened, taking over her body. He swiftly grabbed a pistol and shot out every single floodlight in the room. The tyrant's true personality had now emerged. 3 identities fought for dominance within one body. It was chaos. The tyrant declared that he would kill Chief Choi, but the chief didn't seem to care. Instead, he calmly glanced at his watch and told him to leave immediately and find a dark place to hide. "The sun's coming up soon," he warned. Outside, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed. Chief Choi knew that Team 2 had arrived. He urged the tyrant to flee before he got caught in the crossfire. By this point, Chief Choi had already accepted his fate. His power was completely dismantled, and he knew his end was near, so he simply sat there, waiting for his enemies to arrive. Meanwhile, Hong suddenly broke free from his restraints, grabbed a pistol, and took out several enemies in quick succession. He sprinted toward a window and leaped out. Below was a river. He had successfully escaped, but not without taking a few bullets in the process. Chief Choi, appearing to surrender, waited until a bodyguard approached. Then in a flash, he snatched the guard's gun. "Did you really think I was just some office worker?" he sneered. In the end, Chief Choi sacrificed himself to protect the tyrant's secrets. That way, his enemies couldn't extract any information from his mind. At that moment, beneath the water, a shadow appeared. It grabbed Hong and swiftly pulled him into the depths. The action sequences were just as brutal as those in The Witch. The casting was solid, with a strong female lead. This film explored the past and present lives of a witch and served as the missing piece in the Tyrant project. It felt like a low-budget Venom, especially with the final dialogue between the Tyrant and Troy. Overall, it was an action-packed bloodbath. The addition of the Tyrant's power in the later scenes made it even more explosive. Though his fight sequences felt a little too short to be satisfying, the film had a few flaws. The visuals were way too dark. While the Tyrant was designed to fear sunlight, the excessive darkness hurt the viewing experience. Some scenes also felt a bit shaky. Still, it was a solid action film. And that final scene, a clear setup for a sequel.
Today's story comes to an end, but the journey of exploring great movies continues. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any exciting upcoming videos. Also, leave a comment sharing your thoughts on the movie. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to create even more quality content. See you in the next video.